If you think quiet nights at home are safe, wait until you hear what happened to 3 people who thought the same. Story 1. This is a story I haven't thought about in a long time. I was 27, living alone in a second-floor walk-up in Boise, Idaho, off Vista Avenue near the old strip of motels. I worked the morning shift at a print shop. Nights were mine. Cheap leftovers, podcasts, and the building's creepy basement laundry. It was late October. We'd just had that first snap of cold, the kind that makes the metal stair rail sting your palm. I still remember the price of detergent because I griped about it. $12.99 for a jug of 7th generation, bought at 8:12 p.m. according to the receipt folded in my pocket. I usually did laundry on Sundays, but that night, a Thursday, the apartment above me, Caleb's, had been blasting indie folk all evening. I went down to the basement at 9:30 to escape the noise and knock out a load of work shirts. The basement light was on a pull chain. You had to tug twice to get it to stay. The room smelled like wet concrete and warm dust. 2 washers, 2 dryers, a bulletin board with an outdated community yard sale flyer, and someone's passive-aggressive note about lint. First anomaly, my laundry cart, the wire one with the squeaky front wheel, was missing. Everyone left their carts down there. I figured Caleb borrowed it. He borrowed everything. I shrugged, balanced my basket on the dryer, and started a wash. I set a 32-minute timer on my phone and went back upstairs. The hallway felt colder than outside for some reason, and my door, which I always lock out of habit, took 2 tries to latch. When I came back for the transfer, the basement light was off again. I pulled the chain, 1, 2, and it buzzed awake. My cart was there now, tucked under the folding table like it had been all along. Only, the squeaky wheel didn't squeak when I nudged it out. Whatever, I muttered. I moved the damp clothes into the dryer and fed it quarters. As the drum started up, I heard a clink from the far corner, where the old furnace pipes ran. I told myself it was heat expanding. But then there was a soft, deliberate exhale. Human. Close. Hello? My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. The dryer hummed, coins rattled, and something scraped lightly along the concrete. I peered behind the folding table and the stacked paint cans. Nothing. So I convinced myself it really was the pipes. I left the cart by the dryer and headed upstairs to wait out the cycle. Back in my apartment, I locked the door and turned up a podcast. When I went down again, the dryer door was open. My still warm shirts were neatly folded on the table. That would have been a nice gesture. If any neighbor I knew had ever touched my stuff before. Hey, I called, forcing a laugh. Funny, but not cool. The furnace exhaled. A shape shifted behind the far support column, just the edge of a shoulder. Caleb? I tried. If this is a bit, man. The figure didn't answer. It stepped backward, melting into the deeper shadow behind the column, like it had rehearsed where the light ended. My rational brain scrambled for explanations. A houseless person had gotten in. A friend of a tenant. My cheeks were hot, my hands cold. I stuffed the folded shirts back into my basket and headed for the stairs, trying not to run. I'd taken 3 steps when the basement light snapped off. In the dark, the dryer's drum kept coasting. I heard the squeak that my cart should have made. Only it came from the bottom of the stairs, not beside me. A low voice, male, close, calm, said, "You left your cart." I couldn't see him, but the way he spoke made something in me lock up. Not taunting, not playful, just stating a fact in a voice that knew me. "Keep it," I managed. I used my phone screen for light and bolted the rest of the way up. My key missed the lock twice. The second time, a hand bumped the cart into the first step, just enough to clatter. I got inside, threw the deadbolt, and listened. The stairwell was silent. 2 minutes passed, then 5. No footsteps. I crept to the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I could see the laundry cart parked neatly outside my door, like a gift. I called the non-emergency line. An officer named Ruiz came out, did a quick sweep, checked the basement. No one. No sign of forced entry. He told me to keep my door locked, like that hadn't already become religion. Maybe a neighbor pranking, he said. You'd be surprised how bored people get. I wanted to believe him. I nodded, filed a report I knew would go nowhere, and spent the night on the couch with every light on. The next morning, Caleb texted me, "Hey dude, was that your friend last night?" "Heard talking," I wrote back. "Which friend?" He sent a shrug emoji and, "The guy asking about the cart." I packed 2 duffel bags by noon, signed a month-to-month somewhere else by the weekend, and never went back for the wire cart. My theory? The basement window latch was snapped years ago. Someone had been using that room as their den during the late evenings, comfortable enough to fold my shirts and stand where the light didn't reach. But here's what I still can't square. The voice knew about the squeak that wasn't there that night. Like he had listened to me enough times on other nights to notice what was missing. I never reported the detail about the squeak. I don't know why. Maybe because admitting it felt like admitting how long he'd been watching. Story 2. I do grocery delivery on the side in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm 31, a barista by day, and I run orders in the evenings for extra cash. It's mostly harmless. Porches, Ring cameras, the occasional raccoon that thinks my trunk is a buffet. It was a rainy Tuesday in April. Wipers on medium, the kind of rain that isn't dramatic, just stubborn. My last order of the night was a small one. Oat milk, hummus, tortilla chips, $24.18 before tip. The customer name was Marlene, downtown condo off Biltmore Ave. First anomaly. The delivery instructions said, "Leave at side door, not front. No photos." That's not unheard of, but the app still requires a photo, so I figured they didn't know the rules. I texted, "Hey, I'll need to snap a pic for the app. Won't show your face, just the bag." No response. I parked in a loading zone near the building. The side door was down a narrow alley, a wet concrete chute between 2 old brick walls. I took the bag, jogged down the alley, and found a gray metal door with a keypad and no peephole. There was a doorbell and a second unmarked bell beneath it. I pressed the normal one. A buzzer sounded somewhere else. Rain tapped my hood. Then a voice came from a small speaker I hadn't noticed, down by the second, lower bell. Male voice, older, close to the mic. "Set it down." "Marlene?" I asked. "Set it down," he repeated. Green light flicked above the keypad. The door clicked. I froze. I'm not supposed to go inside. Company policy is clear. "I'll leave it here," I said, setting the bag by the frame. I took the photo quickly as proof. The door opened 2 inches, then stopped against the bag. I stepped back. Through the gap, I caught the smell first. Dry, stale air, like cardboard and old carpet. Then I heard the voice again, softer, like he'd angled away from the mic. "No photo." "It's automatic," I called. "Just the bag." The door eased shut. Silence. I backed into the alley, turned, and jogged out. On the sidewalk, a woman with a dog passed under her umbrella. I breathed normally again. At the car, I checked the app. The delivery hadn't registered. The photo hadn't uploaded because of weak connection. Company policy meant I needed confirmation. I texted again. "Hey Marlene, order is at the side door. Can you confirm?" 3 dots appeared. Then, "Not received. Door still locked. Please bring inside." I looked at the alley's mouth. "Sorry, policy says I can't enter. Maybe have the lobby let you in?" No reply. Rain drummed harder. I got out, jogged back down the alley. The bag was gone. The door was closed. I felt stupidly relieved and snapped another photo of the empty space. When I turned around, someone was standing at the far end of the alley under the streetlight. A man in a green rain shell, hood up. "You good?" he called, friendly enough. "Yeah, just finishing up." He didn't move closer. He didn't smoke, he just stayed where he was, waiting. I walked toward the street and he stepped aside. As I passed, he said too casually, "You do late runs often?" "Sometimes," I said, trying to make my voice bored. "Side doors safer," he said. "Fewer photos." I didn't answer. I got in my car, locked the doors, and looked down at the app again. My screen lit with a new message from Marlene. "Not received. Please bring inside," I typed. I left it. Someone took it. Then I hit support and reported a delivery complication. Before the chat could connect, a knock tapped the passenger window. I flinched. It was the man in the rain shell, bent to look in without pressing his face to the glass. He raised his palms. "I'm not a threat." I cracked the window a half-inch. "Can I help you?" "You dropped this," he said and held up my phone mount. The adhesive-backed plastic had fallen off my dash sometime that evening. "Thanks," I said. He slid it through the gap, careful, polite. "You should come around front next time," he said, and walked into the rain without looking back. Support finally connected and comped the order. I drove home by surface streets, watching my mirror more often than made sense. At 11:58 p.m., a new order request pinged. Same price range, same shopping list, different name, Lenora, and a drop-off note that read, "Use side door." "Lower bell," I declined. I set my status to not accepting orders. Here's my afterword. The condo HOA had posted a notice the next week in a community Facebook group. A screenshot a customer later showed me. "Please do not use the service entrance," it read. "Vagrants have been loitering." I want to believe I met a helpful neighbor. I want to believe Marlene really didn't receive the bag. But when I look at the photo I did manage to upload, one of the empty door frame. The reflection in the wet concrete behind me shows a wedge of the door, still open, and the toe of a shoe holding it there. Never found out who controlled that lower bell. I never reported it beyond the app, and I never take side door instructions anymore. This happened 3 years ago. Story 3. I was house-sitting for my aunt in Tempe, Arizona, just south of the ASU campus. I'd just turned 23 between internships, and I figured watering plants and bringing in Amazon boxes for a week was easy money. Her casita was tiny. 1 bedroom, lots of light, way too many succulents. The neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, would wave from her porch at exactly 6:30 a.m. with a mug the size of her head. On the second night, monsoon clouds rolled in early. My aunt texted, "If the power flickers, breaker box is in the laundry closet." It flickered, killed the AC, then came back with a thump. I switched on a cheap torch I'd found under the sink, brand name Pearlight, and set it by the door just in case. First anomaly, someone tried the front doorknob. It wasn't forceful, just casual, like a family member letting themselves in. 2 polite clicks against the deadbolt. I froze. "Hello?" Silence. Mrs. Delgado's TV murmured next door. The wind hissed. I told myself it was the storm pushing the handle through some vacuum pressure thing I didn't understand. When the power died completely, I grabbed the Pearlight, and the beam showed dust motes and the outline of the breaker closet by the washer. When I opened the closet, the flashlight caught something that didn't belong. A post-it stuck to the breaker door, torn at the corner. In my aunt's blocky caps, "If out, flip main then AC." I laughed with relief. "Systems, instructions." I flipped the main, then AC. Nothing. The flashlight dimmed. For a second I thought the batteries were dying, then steadied. As I stepped back, the washer lid clicked like someone tapped it gently with a finger. "Wind," I said aloud, like naming it made it real. I went to the front door and checked the deadbolt. It was still set. I slid the chain on. A slow scrape sounded from the kitchen. Metal on tile. I swung the light and found a fork on the floor 2 feet from the counter, like it had been pushed with the tines down. "Hello?" A reply came, not from the kitchen but from just outside the front door, inches from the wood. A man, voice low, like he was trying to keep a child from waking. "You don't have to call anyone." The flashlight shook in my hand. I didn't answer. My brain sprinted in small circles. "Neighbor? Emergency? Wrong address?" "I'm across the street," he said. "I can help with the breaker." I stayed still. "What's your name?" I finally asked, a beat. "Mark," he said. I didn't know any Mark across the street. My aunt had left a note with 3 neighbor names, Delgado, Tariq, and Cam and Joe. "No Mark. I'm good," I said. "Thanks." The handle turned once. The chain made a small, optimistic sound like it wanted to help. "You'll lock it again," he said. When the lights come back, that did it. I moved fast, back through the casita, out the side door into the tiny yard, over the low block wall into Mrs. Delgado's lot. I pounded on her screen door. She answered in her robe, eyebrows already raised. "Mija, there's a man at the door. Says his name is Mark." She didn't ask questions. She pulled me inside, locked 3 locks, and made me sit at her kitchen table while she called her son. We listened. Wind. The slap of rain. Far-off thunder. Then, from her backyard, a tiny, almost embarrassed clink, like a gate latch being set down instead of dropped. She turned off the landline speaker with her palm and whispered, "Stay." She went to the back slider and peered through the curtain. "Nothing," she said after a moment, but her voice wasn't convinced. Her son arrived with a flashlight and a length of PVC pipe he apparently kept for snakes. He checked my aunt's place. No one inside. The front chain was still set. The side gate was now unlatched. He stayed until the power kicked back on. He walked me back, flipped the breakers like it was nothing, and laughed off my shaking hands. "Monsoon pranksters," he said. "Happens every year." Maybe he believed that. Maybe he wanted me to. After the storm, when I watered the succulents the next morning, I noticed the outside outlet by the front step had a new orange extension cord coiled beside it. I didn't have one. My aunt didn't either. I texted my aunt a photo. She sent back, "We don't own a cord." Then, a minute later, "Does the porch camera still work?" There was no porch camera. There had been a little black puck once, but it had fallen off the stucco last year and never been replaced. I finished the week. I moved back to my apartment. A month later, Mrs. Delgado mailed me a small package, a thank you note and, wrapped in bubble, a Perlite flashlight. "Found on your front step after you left," she'd written. "Thought you might want it." The batteries were new. Here's the part I keep looping. During outages, some folks run cords from generators to neighbors. Good deeds, extension cords, community. But whoever said, "You'll lock it again when the lights come back," knew the order of operations in my house before I did. Maybe he'd watched enough people flip my aunt's breakers to learn it. Or maybe he was the one who'd tried the knob on other nights. Not just during the storm. I never filed a report. I haven't house sat since. This is going to be something I think about regularly for a while. I know it was my own stupidity. But some quiet nights at home never let you forget.